Hello everyone, welcome to my channel, where today we will take a look at the Bitcoin mempool. This is the Bitcoin mempool. It's a place where Bitcoin transactions are waiting to be confirmed on the Bitcoin network. We will be going through this entire interface, and I'll show you what all of these things mean, especially if this is something that's more foreign to you. I know for a lot of people, this type of stuff, this might look a little bit confusing right here. So we will be going through each tab at the top here, as well as what everything means. So let's start by just looking at the transactions here. This block, every single Bitcoin block can only contain a certain amount of transactions. The transactions that pay the highest fee get prioritized in the next block, which these are the unconfirmed blocks. So right now it looks like there's about 16 or so unconfirmed blocks. And these are the blocks that are waiting to be confirmed on the network. This block right here, these are the transactions that have paid the highest fee and are waiting to be confirmed in the next block. Blocks on average occur roughly every 10 minutes on average. So you can see the last block was 10 minutes ago. If you highlight over these transactions, you can see how much Bitcoin is being moved. So for this specific transaction, you can see that there's 1.8 BTC being transferred for a fee of 39,000 sats, or $34. So yeah, so this specific transaction costs about $34 to move. The reason that this specific transaction takes, or the reason why it costs more for this transaction to be confirmed, is because it is a larger transaction. So you can see the size of each transaction is displayed by how large the specific block is. So this block here, it contains a lot more data because there's a lot more inputs and outputs, so that you have to pay a higher fee based on the size of your transaction. So for example, this transaction has to pay roughly $80 to be confirmed because it has a lot of inputs and outputs. Usually when you see a transaction that's very large like this, it tends to come from an exchange, meaning that this transaction likely is coming from a place like Coinbase, Binance, River, Strike, any of these big exchanges. And they send the Bitcoin to hundreds of people. So let's take a look at this one. So this is actually a consolidation. Never mind. This is likely still an exchange, but they are consolidating hundreds of these inputs into a single UTXO, which is right here. So let's go find a better example. That's not a good example. let's see. Let's take a look at this one. This transaction, they are transferring a lot more Bitcoin. Yeah, so they're transferring a total of 16 Bitcoin here. So this is a very large transaction. This is likely from an exchange. So you can see here, these are all of the previous addresses, and these are being sent to over 200 different users in a single transaction. So this exchange is sending all this Bitcoin to hundreds of different people. And these are all the different people that are getting the Bitcoin. And this is all contained within a single transaction, which is pretty incredible. So these are all the inputs from the exchange, and these are all the outputs to the different users that are taking their Bitcoin off the exchange. So let's go back to the main screen here. Let's take a look at this part right here, which is called the difficulty adjustment. The difficulty adjustment, this is what determines how difficult it is to find a block if you are mining Bitcoin. The difficulty adjustment occurs every 2 weeks. So every 14 days, there's a difficulty adjustment. And what that means is that if it becomes too easy to find blocks, so like let's say a miner finds blocks every 9 minutes instead of every 10 minutes, the difficulty increases. So you can see right here that for this specific 2-week period, there has been a 0.82% increase in the difficulty, meaning that miners are finding blocks slightly faster than 10 minutes. And because they're finding blocks faster than 10 minutes, it's going to become 0.82% more difficult to find blocks in the next 2-week period. So, in this instance, the next 2-week period begins in 17 hours. So we are almost at the end of this current 2-week period. So in 17 hours, we will know what this final number will be. It might be higher, it might be lower, but it's probably going to be around what this number is right here. So it's probably going to become slightly more difficult to mine blocks during the next period. The last 2-week period that happened before this one actually went down. So that means that miners were finding blocks slower than 10 minutes. They were taking 3.15% slower. So I'm not sure what the exact math is on that, but it might be more like 10 minutes and 20 seconds or something like that was the average that it took to find a block. Because some people might not know that that Bitcoin, there isn't a block every 10 minutes. 10 minutes is just the average that it takes to mine a block. So you can see here the last block was found 17 minutes ago, not 10 minutes ago. There can be times when it takes 20, 30, 40, even 50 or 60 minutes to find a single block. And that's just by chance. It's just unlucky that happens, but it happens, once in a while. But after the entire 2-week period is over, it usually comes down to around 10 minutes on average. That's the goal, is 10 minutes. Okay. Let's go to the next section, which is transaction fees. This is where you can see how much fees you'll have to pay if you want to get your transaction in the next block. So if you want to pretty much guarantee that your transaction gets into the next block, you'll need to pay 3 sats per VByte, which is roughly 36 cents. So it's actually very cheap right now to transact on the base layer for Bitcoin. It's not always this cheap, so this is a good time to move funds around. And then, as you can see here, medium priority. This basically means that your transaction will likely be confirmed in the next hour. So if you want your transaction to be confirmed in the next 6 blocks, they're estimating that you will probably need that as well. And right now, these are both the same. Even this, they're all the same right now, which is interesting because I believe low priority, I think this is 6 hours. If you want your transaction confirmed in the next 6 hours, on average, they estimate this. And then no priority, that basically means you don't even care if your transaction gets confirmed today. You're fine with waiting, more than 1 day to get it confirmed. Which, this is honestly what I do most of the time, because I have there's no need to rush. Why pay extra? I mean, at least in this case, there's not much of a difference. There's only like a 12-cent difference. But when fees are higher, I normally do the no priority. Because I don't really care if my transactions get confirmed in the next day or not. It's not something I don't need my Bitcoin in my wallet immediately, so the only time you would really need high priority is if you're, for some reason, using Bitcoin as a payment method on layer 1. So if you're spending Bitcoin using the base layer, you would want high priority. But that's really the only reason why I would see the need to use the highest fees, personally. Okay, so let's go to the next section, which this is the memory usage. This is the amount of memory that is currently coming into the mempool. So right now, there's not many transactions coming through right now. It's pretty low. And this white bar here, this is what represents the amount of transactions that would need to be coming through for it to fully fill a block within 10 minutes. So right now, there's actually less transactions coming through than what's needed to fill a block in 10 minutes. And sometimes it spikes over it, like you can see here. A lot of transactions came through around 6 o'clock today. So for whatever reason, a lot of transactions flooded the mempool in this specific time, and it's kind of been going down ever since. And this, this can spike all over, depending on what time of the day. In some cases, it'll be really high for a long period of time. Right now, it just happens to be low, which is not always the case. And here is the memory usage. So if you are running your own Bitcoin node, you can change this setting based on your own node. But the default setting for Bitcoin is to only hold the last 300 megabytes of transactions, or the 300 megabytes worth of transactions that have the highest fee. I believe that's actually what is occurring here. So if you have a low fee transaction, if you're paying a low fee, your transactions will be kicked out of users' mempools if this memory usage goes all the way up to 300 megabytes. So right now it's only, it's not even 1/3 full. But if it did go all the way up to 300 megabytes, the lowest fee transactions would be kicked out of the mempool. But exchanges and things like that, they have very large mempools, meaning that they probably up this number from 300 megabytes to, multiple gigabytes. You could even have a mempool that has 16 gigabytes, 32 gigabytes. So you could hold, millions of transactions in the mempool if that's if your mempool is that large. Because right now the default, you could probably hold maybe like 50,000 transactions, something like that. But yeah, for the people that have a much larger mempool, you could probably hold over 1 million transactions. And that is actually very useful because that ensures that these low fee transactions don't get kicked out, and that they do end up getting confirmed eventually, which we've seen that happen before. We've seen, hundreds of thousands. I don't know if we've ever seen 1 million transactions in the mempool, but definitely several 100,000 have been in the mempool before. And they eventually all got confirmed after a few months because some people had mempools that were very large and could hold a lot of data. So yeah, pretty cool stuff. Let's go down here. This is just where you see the most recent transactions coming through over here. You can see how much is being transferred. A lot of them are smaller, but some of them are bigger. Like this, you'll see, a few $100s, or you'll see a few $1,000s. This is over $100,000, $250,000. And then, occasionally you'll see movements of millions or even hundreds of millions of dollars in a single transaction, which is always pretty cool to see. Oh, like this one, we just saw $7 million transfer. And these are the fees that they're paying over here. And then over here is what we call replacements. So like, let's say that you have a transaction that you made a few days ago, and it's still not confirmed for whatever reason, probably because you put a fee that's really low. So yeah, let's say it's been a few days and you want that transaction to be confirmed. You can actually replace the fee. Meaning that if you put a low fee, you can replace it with a high fee so that it can be confirmed faster. And this can be useful for, obvious reasons, especially if you're moving larger amounts of money. Like if you have a large amount of money that is stuck in the mempool and has not been confirmed over here, that can be a pretty big problem. Because, you want access to that money eventually. So instead, you can replace the old fee with the new fee. So, for example, this person replaced their old fee of 2 sats per vbyte with their new fee of 4 sats per vbyte. So roughly they doubled the fee. And yeah, pretty much all of these are just increasing the fee to ensure that they get in the next block. Okay, going back up here, we can still see that there has not been a new transaction or a new block confirmed, not a transaction. So we are still 28 minutes from the last block being confirmed here. And let's take a look at this. So we've already taken a look at the blocks that are waiting to be confirmed. But let's take a look at the blocks that are already confirmed over here. So these are the blocks that are confirmed. And what this number means here, this is the amount of fees paid in this block. So the miners that mine this block, got 0.02 BTC in fees for mining the block, which is actually very small. That's actually a lot of these fees. This is a lot smaller than normal. Um, Lately, it's more common to maybe see 0.05, 0.07, or 0.1 BTC in fees. So this is, much lower than normal. Going in here, if you click the confirm block, you can see all the details. So, all the fees that they got. So they only got roughly, not even $2,000 in fees that were paid to the miners. But then they also got the new BTC that was mined. And this is where the big money still comes into play for mining, is the new Bitcoin that is issued, which is currently 3.125 BTC per block. So every single one of these blocks that's mined, miners get at least 3.125 BTC, which is nearly $300,000 per block currently. And yeah, that's the minimum that they make, is roughly this block. Sometimes, if a block pays a lot in fees, you'll see this go way up to where, they'll be getting 3.5 Bitcoin, like well over $300,000 per block, when fees are higher. And going in here, you can see the transactions that were actually confirmed. This is what was expected to go in the block, and this is what actually went in the block. And the reason that it's different is, well, in this case, it doesn't look like there was many transactions that were different. It looks like this might be the only one that was not included. Miners get to choose which specific transactions go into a block, and sometimes those transactions are different than what is expected to go in the block. And that can be for various reasons. That can be, money reasons, or just preference, personal preference. It's really up to them, whatever they include. But usually they will include whoever paid the highest fee. And this specific miner that mined the last block is Via BTC, which they are a Chinese miner, I believe. I think that's the second largest Chinese miner and the third largest miner overall. And that is actually where we will go next. But yeah, I guess the last thing I'll say here is this is currently the 886,934, or block number 886,934. So there has been this many blocks in the entire history of Bitcoin since its inception over 16 years ago. So there's not even been 1 million blocks yet. I think the 1,000,000th block happens in 2027. So we still have roughly 2 years to go until the 1,000,000th block is mined, which that will be, something to celebrate. Really, really cool. Yeah, that'll be a pretty big deal. Let's go over to the next tab at the top here, which this is the mining tab. So this is all the information you need to look at the mining statistics. I guess we'll look up here. So for the last day, so there's 144 blocks every day that are mined, roughly. And this is how much money the miners have made in the last day. So they've been overall paid almost $40 million in the last 24 hours. Which is, that's about average. I would say they've been making around 40 million, 40, 50 million for the last 3 months or so. Um, so this is, yeah, pretty typical. But fees, this is what I was saying, that is still really low. Um, Super low fees. So they're not making much money in fees. This is per block. So what is that? They're making like maybe $500,000 in fees overall, every day. If you multiply this by 144, I think that's probably around 500,000. And then going down here, this is where you can see which specific mining pools are winning the most blocks. So you can see here, Foundry USA has found the most blocks in the last day here. Or actually, I think this is based on weekly. Never mind, not daily. So weekly Foundry USA, which this is the United States' largest public mining pool. And it's the largest pool in the world. So the United States, this pool didn't really exist up until maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and they quickly became the largest pool in the world, especially after China banned Bitcoin mining. It gained a huge amount of popularity after that. And they've almost gotten too big to where they control, a large portion of the blocks coming through, which, I'm not a big fan of. I don't like seeing a single pool with, 34% of the total hash rate. I would prefer if that number goes down. I just don't like centralized control towards any mining pool specifically. So even though I do love that miners are coming to the United States, it would be nice if they switched pools and didn't all put their hash in a single pool here. Going up to the second biggest miner, this is Ant Pool. They are a much older pool, and they are the largest Chinese pool. So this is the largest American pool, which has roughly 34%. The next 3 pools, these are all Chinese pools. So China has Ant Pool. Actually, I think I'm mistaken here. Oh, no. I think via PTC, I think they are Chinese. Yeah. Never mind. I was right. Yeah, these 3 are all Chinese pools. And they have, 16%, 13%, and 10% of the overall hash rate. So, also very large. The United States the US and China control a majority of the blocks that go through the network. Mara, this is also an American pool. So this is America's second largest pool. I'm not sure which ones these are. These might be outside of America and China. But I know Luxor is American. And yeah, Binance is Chinese. Brains is not American or Chinese. I forget where they are. But yeah, a few of these. There's only a few pools that are not American or Chinese. The majority are just those 2 countries. They dominate Bitcoin mining currently. And yeah, let's go over here. This is where you see the current hash rate and the difficulty. Right now, there is roughly almost 800 exahash, 790.3 exahash to be precise. And what that means is that currently all of the miners in the entire world are guessing 790 quadrillion times every second. So what an exahash is a quadrillion. So that's a quadrillion computations So basically there's 790 quadrillion computations happening every second trying to guess what the hash is for the next block. And that's what determines if a miner gets all of the money in this next block. If they are the ones to correctly guess the hash for this block, they are rewarded with, $300,000 worth of Bitcoin, which is quite a lot. And this has only gone up. Like, we can look at this chart here. This is the overall hash rate for Bitcoin, and it has only gone up. So this is over the last 2 years, over the last 3 years, and this is its entire 16-year history. It has just gone parabolic for 16 years straight. More and more people trying to earn Bitcoin through the mining process. Bitcoin mining has become so large to where it's taking up multiple percentage points of the entire world's energy. I'm not sure what percent it is exactly, but it is a large percent, and it's increasing to this day. Which, some people try and spin that as a negative thing, but that is what is needed to secure the most powerful monetary network on the planet. And as Bitcoin mining becomes more competitive, you actually need cheaper energy to compete. And the cheapest energy is stranded energy. So the most profitable miners are actually getting energy that would have otherwise been wasted and thrown away. So a large percentage of the Bitcoin network is actually energy that would have otherwise not been used and, put to waste for this reason. So in a way, Bitcoin miners are actually extremely efficient and not harming the environment like all these people are claiming. Okay, but let's go to the next section here. This is where you can see all of the most recent blocks and who mined it. So these are all the last 6 blocks. These are the different pools that mined the block. And wow, we are still 42 minutes from the last block, which is, that's pretty long. Like I said, it's usually 10 minutes on average. So this usually happens at least once a day, but I guess we're just getting unlucky here. There's no blocks coming through in the last 42 minutes. Let's go over to the next tab, which is the Lightning Network. For those of you who don't know, Bitcoin's payment network is a layer 2 called the Lightning Network. This is what allows you to move Bitcoin instantly and almost free at the speed of light anywhere in the world. You don't have to wait 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 40 minutes like what we're seeing now. You can transact and pay instantly. So if you wanted to go, if a coffee place accepted Bitcoin, this is how you would actually make a payment. You wouldn't be using a regular Bitcoin transaction. You would be using a Lightning transaction. And there are plenty of Lightning apps available now. And Lightning is being integrated into more and more exchanges, so you can use Lightning directly from your exchange. Coinbase added Lightning a few months ago. Cash App has Lightning. Strike, River, they all have Lightning now. Meaning that, yeah, you can transact Bitcoin at no cost, for virtually no cost. It's usually maybe a few cents at most. And it's actually based on a percentage fee. So right now, the average base fee, or it's the fee rate, sorry. So the average fee rate is 0.4%. Meaning that when you transact on the Lightning Network, if you are sending $100, it would be a 40-cent fee. But if you're sending, if you're sending a $10 fee, or if you're sending a $10 transaction, it would be a 4-cent fee. So 4 cents for sending $10. Pretty cheap. And it's actually, 0.4% is a lot lower than what traditional credit cards and debit cards charge. They usually charge 2 to 3%. So this is, maybe 5 times cheaper than what credit cards charge currently. This number fluctuates, but usually this is actually the highest I've ever seen it. I'm used to seeing it at 0.1%. That's what I usually am used to seeing. So recently it's likely gone up a little bit. So that Lightning nodes become a little bit more profitable, is my guess. They're able to raise it a little bit. Because, Lightning node operators don't make a lot of money. This is how much Bitcoin is currently on the Lightning Network. So there's currently almost 5,000 Bitcoin on the Lightning Network, which is almost $500 million. It doesn't sound like much when we're talking about, the world's global payment network, but most transactions that occur on Lightning are very small. You usually wouldn't send more than, a few $100s on Lightning. A large Lightning transaction would be a few $100s. I think the largest transaction I've ever made on Lightning was maybe a little bit more than $1,000, which is not very common. You wouldn't do that very often. So that's why the capacity is not very large, is because 99% of transactions are probably below $100. And you don't need much Bitcoin on the network to handle all of those very small transactions. And there are currently almost 17,000 Lightning nodes around the world. Anyone can run a node. If you run a node, you can process Lightning transactions for anyone on the planet. And you get paid this fee for doing so. I have ran a Lightning node in the past. It's very hard to be profitable doing it. Like, I was maybe making a few dollars a month at my peak, which, so not very much money. But it's still cool to see and help the network process all these payments for, millions of people across the world. And there are currently roughly 44,000 channels, and these are payment channels. I'm not going to get super in-depth about this. I might do another video on how Lightning Network channels work. But for now I'm just going to focus on other things. And these are where all the current nodes are being hosted. So a lot of companies just pay Amazon to host their Lightning nodes for them. I don't like this. I don't like, when I ran my own node, I ran it myself, which would probably be in this other category here. I don't like, allowing these other companies to host my node for me. Um, uh, First off, they could potentially steal your Bitcoin, which I would not trust that. And secondly, just for privacy reasons, it's best that you run your own node and not have someone else host it. But if you do want a fast node, I guess if you're a company and want a really fast node that just processes payments extremely quickly, having these cloud services probably have the fastest networks, meaning that you could probably process thousands of transactions per second with no issue. And that's usually how long a Lightning payment takes. So like if you send a Lightning payment from Cash App to Coinbase or something like that, the average Lightning payment takes maybe 2 or 3 seconds to send. But I've had transactions go through in under a second. The really fast ones will go in under a second, and the slow ones will maybe be 10 seconds. But I don't think I've had a payment take much longer than 10 seconds ever. That is like the worst case scenario usually. And here you can see the entire history of liquidity on the Lightning Network. It's been relatively flat for the last 3 years or so. Overall liquidity has been roughly the same. Channels have been going down, mostly because people have consolidated their channels into larger channels. You don't want small channels on Lightning, but like I said, I'll go through that in a different video. Okay, but let's go to the next tab here, which this is how much data is currently in the mempool. So right now we're at roughly 15 megabytes of transactions waiting to be confirmed. And you can see the last 24 hours this has gone down, meaning there's not that many transactions that have been going through or being added to the network in the last 24 hours. In the last week, it's also been kind of trending down. And what these different colors represent are the different fee rates. So the pink here is the cheapest fee. So people are paying the cheapest possible fee for the last few weeks here, just simply because there's not much demand for block space right now. Purple is the second cheapest fee rate. It's between 2 and 3 sats per vbyte. This is only 1 to 2 sats per vbyte, and it progressively gets more and more expensive. So these transactions up here, these are the ones that we're paying the most to get confirmed on the network. And as you can see right here, over the last year, it has actually been trending down for almost the last year now. So transactions have been it's been getting cheaper and cheaper to process transactions. There's a lot of theories for why this is happening, but I think the most reasonable theory is that this is when the ETFs were launched. So the ETFs were launched, roughly a year ago. And I think they have taken a lot of the fees away from the network. I think a lot of people are buying Bitcoin through the ETFs now. And that is lowering the overall fees on the network, which, I don't think is a great thing. But I do also think that this is just temporary. I think fees are going to go much, much higher in the future. So I would enjoy these low fees while you still can, because looking back at this video, maybe a year or two from now, fees might be very expensive again. And this is where fees really peaked. So the mempool, it had nearly 565 megabytes of data which is, I believe this is the highest ever in the entire history of Bitcoin. We can go all the way back. Yeah, this is the most transactions that have ever been in the mempool at a given time, which is, roughly January 20th, 2024, which is just an absurd amount of transactions waiting to be confirmed. Anyway, this brings us back to the main page. The next block has still not confirmed after 54 minutes. This is, definitely reaching a very long amount of time. It's likely that when the next block is confirmed, you will likely see, 3 or 4 blocks confirmed within the next 10 minutes. Or after this block is confirmed, you usually will see a bunch confirmed right in a row, simply because it took so long for this last block to be mined, that just by pure chance, it usually occurs to where, a bunch of blocks will be confirmed in a short amount of time. So that's likely what's going to happen here. But anyway, I hope that was a decent explanation on some of these things. I know a lot of this stuff, you might not be able to understand a lot of what I just said if you are not at least somewhat into Bitcoin. But if you are new to Bitcoin, let me know what you thought about the video and if I explained things well. And if you have any questions about anything I said here, also feel free to comment below. Anyway, thank you for checking out my channel. I hope you guys enjoyed your first look at the mempool. Or maybe if you are a frequent Bitcoin user, this might be a very similar, or you might be familiar with this. But otherwise, hope you guys enjoyed, and catch you on the next video.